appreciation to Wing Commander Vivek Chaturvedi. Thank you, ma'am. We now move ahead to understand environmental and EMI/EMC testing by Lieutenant Colonel Mohit Goyal, Army Center for Electromagnetics, MAU. He was commissioned into the Armored Corps from the Indian Military Academy in 2009 and currently serves as System Officer, Data Management and Technical, spearheading EMI/EMC trials for new equipment being inducted into the Indian Army. He is a qualified EMI/EMC specialist from the Army Center of Electromagnetics and has previously served as an instructor at the Armored Corps Center and School at Ahmednagar. May I now request Lieutenant Colonel Mohit Goyal to address the audience.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Though I have written over here the unseen battlefield, but I'll say it is the unseen enemy of the industry. So, how I will cover this is basically I'll give you the importance of the EMI/EMC where the complete industry is lacking right now at this juncture. They are not understanding the importance of EMI/EMC. Then, what are the standards being followed? What challenges we have seen the industry face during the trial stage itself, and what are the mitigation measures. And in the last, I have something to offer to you all if you pay attention to the lecture itself. So, coming on to the EMI/EMC, the EMI/EMC forms part of a bigger gambit where the electromagnetic warfare domain is basically the matter of spectrum dominance. And the spectrum dominance comes with the three part which I mentioned over here, the electromagnetic warfare capability. So, as we all know, the Indian Army is moving towards the electronic warfare capabilities. So, after that, coming on to the spectrum management, where the spectrum management not in terms of only the RF signatures, but akin to that terrain and how it is behaving. Because right now the EM environment is congested, and we need to deconflict it. And lastly, I'll say the EMI/EMC, it is to ensure that the equipment which is there, which you guys are producing, will function to its optimal use in the such kind of environment. The electromagnetic compatibility forms the basic rock, I'll say, or the base of any mission success. Why the armies across the world is looking for this electromagnetic compatibility as a major aspect during the technical trial, because if your equipment fails, then it could lead to loss of communication. It could lead to GPS degradation, sensor blindness, weapon misfires, and that will lead to failure of a mission by an armed soldier. So that's why EMI/EMC is not an option. It is a mandatory requirement nowadays to fight the war fighting domain of today's and the future battlefield. And if a system that cannot operate in an EM environment, so it is not a fighting system, it is a target. Understanding the basics of the EMI/EMC is basically when you produce an EOT, it acts like a victim and it acts like a source, both. So how does it act? EMI is the basically electromagnetic interference is the cause, whereas the EMC is the solution for the entire process or your development stage of your prototype development. When I talk about EOT as a source, so it is in the form of conducted susceptibility and the radiated emissions. Conducted susceptibility through cables and wires, where your equipment is acting as a source. When it is integrated with other system, so it is generating that kind of emissions which can affect the functionality of other system too. And similar case for the radiated emissions. But when I talk about EOT as a victim, so your equipment which you have manufactured as per the PSQR and the GSQR being told in the previous all lectures. So at that time EOT act as a victim because the other equipment emissions can affect your equipment not functioning optimally. So when I interact with the industry says that why the MIL standards are required. MIL standards are the basic minimum need which we require. Why I have listed out over here. When we are testing in the lab conditions, it is all these points are there. But when we are operationally involved, it is deployed in conjunction with many other equipment where we have to deal with the extreme temperatures and all the environmental aspects also comes into the play. So this is a basic minimum requirement of that we ask for, that the MIL standard has to be followed. Similarly, now I don't want to elaborate on more of the importance of the MIMC because of the duration which has been given. It can cause to blue and blue patricide. We are all aware in 1967 the USS Fosterl, when the aircraft was approaching the aircraft carrier of a US Navy. So that time, because of the spurious emission, the missile has been launched and it caused the damage to the complete deck itself. So now I'll just give you a brief about the standards which are being followed while we are part of this field evaluation trials and from the PSQR stage itself. So we are following the MIL standards, that is the NATO standards. The MIL standards 461G is applicable for the subsystems, whereas the 464 Charlie/Delta is for the platform level system. I have highlighted over here the two parts only, that is the Army aircraft which is there and the ground army. Rest, the parallel agencies, Naval and Air Force, they also check as per the MIL standard 461G and 464 Delta. Now I'll come to the practical aspects of it, where the EMIMC challenges being faced by the industry and how it is affecting the industry in basically failing of the equipment during the field evaluation trials. So covering on to the first part is MIL standards. So everyone in the industry feels that the MIL standards are very stringent, that the kind of testing it has been done, the amount of voltage which is being generated or your equipment has been given to at a distance of 1 meter is quite high. Why can't go for the CISPR or why can't go for the open industry standards? But when we are operating, as I've already told, in the environment where the equipment has to be utilized, we cannot define the environment where and when and what equipment will be used. So that's why this is MIL standards are the minimum basic requirement. Then long waiting queues for the test infrastructure. Yes, there are limited infrastructure which is available across the India for enable accreditation, but there are long queues. These are the challenges being faced by you. So I just listen now because when I am interacting with the industry, they are telling all these kind of problems which they are facing. Then coming on to the system integration, the equipment which is already there. Now what you are developing is a kind of a subsystem to that equipment. So equipment has its own EM environment where the subsystem is being installed. So how it will interact. So that's where the MIL standard comes into play, that this is the basic minimum standard what we require so that it can function optimally. The indigenous, I'll say EMIMC's expertise. Now what happens during the trials, as the Brigadier Navneet also brought out earlier, that the people, the companies or the vendors send their only the sales rep for the trials. However, in recent one of the trials I have observed this, the vendor was not aware the kind of signal or the communication or the control or the voltage being flown through the cables, and this can lead to a wrong testing. So until and unless your technical rep, your designer does not interact with us, will not come to know what is the equipment all about and will not be able to conduct the complete testing in a manner where it can lead to a compliance. Otherwise, the half knowledge or no knowledge will lead to a non-compliance as for the standard practice we carry out. And lastly, the cost. When I talk about the cost, is basically the cost of testing it outside, that is in the NABL accredited lab, because there are very specific, very few labs which are available, so they charge very high for all these things. So what happens? Industry makes the prototype and doesn't test it as an internal part of it. And what will happen? They are not confident while fielding the equipment for the trials. And this is the where the equipment fails at the initial stage itself, because you have not tested it prior to fielding it for the equipment for the trials, and then you ask for the retrial and all those iteration happens. Over here I have just brought out basically the test end mentality. Why? Because we are not thinking about AMI/MC aspect from the starting point itself. When a QR has been given, the company start thinking that we have to meet the operational parameter first. But I would like to stop you over here that you have to see all the trialability parameters in one go while you are conceptualizing the stage or your prototype. Why the COTS we say is not applicable or not given in the military forum is basically because of the lower susceptibility. It will not sustain the future war or the kind of warfare we are fighting in. So rather than, these are the challenges which I have noted on few of them for everyone consumption. But what will be the mitigation measures? So if I talk about the mitigation measures, the firstly implementation of EMC by design itself. That from the prototype stage, once you are making or conceptualizing the design, you start thinking about the AMI/MC aspect. In this main, once you start having a concept, then with the help of milestones, you can review your design at the design stage itself. That, like the previous speaker mentioned about the PDR stage. So you can review your AMI/MC design also. And lastly, you can use the simulation tools to find out that what could be the challenges you can face during the trials itself. Then establishing the AMI/MC control plan, then having experts where you can use AMI/MC management plan you can develop in parallel to your actual realization of the prototype. So before even getting into the actual realization, you start thinking about the AMI/MC aspect. Then improving your grounding, shielding, enhancing the bonding and optimizing the cable. So these are the basic, I'll say 5 key pillars where you can achieve the AMI/MC very easily. But what happens? We are not thinking about that. So when we are not thinking about that, what will happen? The retrofitment cost, which is 10 times more. I'll give an example of a missing gasket. There was one of the equipment where the AMI/MC gasket was not placed, because for us the gasket is of rubber, which is saving from the dust and the water, any subsystem or any equipment. But when we don't put that AMI/MC gasket, which is hardly worth 1000 rupees, so what happens? The AMI/MC emissions are much higher and your equipment fails during the trial stage itself. So rather than going for this retrofitment cost, go for the initial design stage. Now lastly, when I talked about that I have something to offer to you, when we are talking about what is there, at ACE we have developed these 4 stack, the layers of simulation software. Now these are the simulation software. Layer 1 is the component level, the second layer is the platform level, the third is the mission level, and the fourth is the theater level. So on behalf of ACE, I will offer you that you can send your engineers, you can get your design, you can do the simulation under our guidance also, and then you can find out that whether there will be any emissions during the design stage itself. There will be no infringement of IPR rights. You can send your resident engineers, they can get the design, test it, simulate it and take it back. We don't want any kind of design to stay with us. So this is an offer that you can just contact ADB or ACE directly. You can come over, simulate these, because these are the software which is available in the open market also, but they are very highly costly. So we have developed this stack and you can use them for your designing purpose. We are in the process of integrating all 4. Right now they are standalone. So in another 6 months we'll integrate this, and then you can simulate from the component level the AMI/MC emissions, the AMC plus, that is actual generation of the chamber standards, how the trials will be conducted, that will be done. Then its implication when it has been placed in the mission level, that is at the different terrains, and then finally at the theatre level how it will be utilized. Lastly, for consumption of all the designers, I again request that EMC please start thinking from the design stage itself. And for the operators, someone has said that the field report is much more important than the lab report. So the people like me in the uniform, if they find any issue, they should report to A directly, and then we can resolve it subsequently. And then, yes, finally the decision maker, the CD directorate and the ADB, the minimum mill standard has to be achieved. Otherwise, we are calling for a trouble for ourselves. The reform, avoiding the physical trials, we can go for the certification, but the availability of enabled labs are limited. With this, when I said in starting that it is an unseen enemy, now I remember the quote of that movie. Now you can see me. Thank you, Jen.
Okay, any questions from anybody on the EMI EMC testing? Please go ahead. Give the mic to him.
So not directly with just testing but I wanted to know, because we were talking about electronic warfare and everything, how much the army is interested in, like, let's say, satellite-based RF interference geolocation and satellite-based applications in these domain, and how we can approach you regarding that so that we can discuss further details.
See, for this you have to contact ADB. Janman is already brought up. I am here for basically telling you the testing part, how we are going for the testing, and I have limited my scope to that. But for any new project which you are saying,
Don't worry, there is an exclusive session by General Maan at the end. So you please, come up again with your query that time. Pass the mic, please.
Yeah, hi sir, thank you for the lot of insights. I am from DefMate and we are building precision infrastructure for Indian defense, which is largely related to electronic warfare and a lot of software integration, where we ingest a lot of data in one system. So we would like to a little bit more clarity how we can go as a third-party lab, because generally on the hardware side we found a lot of labs which can go and test. But how to navigate this path when it comes to testing those software-built products?
see, software build already brought out that there are in Army we have the stake which is there. We have Army cyber groups which are working on this. So you can contact them. So why? Because what happens, I've seen in the MIC trials also, the industry is not interacting the right person who will going to test the equipment. So if you meet the right person, you will be able to get and guide it better in that manner. So that you can approach through the signal directorate also, or through the ADB through them.
Best is that you write a mail to General Maan also and General Mahapatra also.
Right.
And I'm sure you will find some answer. In case you still do not succeed, St. George is just a call away.
Thank you, sir.
Sir, actually, I'm a research intern at USI and I'm currently also pursuing my bachelor's in engineering. So, as a student, sir, I'd like to know if the stack that you were mentioning for EMI, EMC compliance, will you be releasing any kind of version of it for academic usage or for essentially, if you want to develop an ecosystem for development, then it has to be taught to the students, right? Even in my college, I have not been taught this extensively. There's been one guest lecture on it, and a lot of it is due to lack of resources or lack of knowledge too. So if this similar thing could be made open source or could be released for academic usage, maybe it would help people.
So what you said, we are working on that. Basically, we are tying up with IIT Indore, where the interns from the IIT Indore will be coming to ACE for practicing on these kind of software and the live military projects. So whatever the military projects are running, they can work on that as an interns over there. So that we are progressing, but yet the approval has not come. So I'll not commit on that. But we are in the process of doing it.
So it is a planned.
Yes, it's a.
Thanks.
So can I just ask?
One more, please.
Yeah. So the question is that
No more question, please. We, if anything balance, we'll cover in the industry session.